Hello everyone, welcome to another video of Glitches of Interest, a series where I show glitches I personally find interesting or think can be incredibly helpful. These videos typically consist of glitches that are on the smaller side, that typically don't get their own video, but I also sprinkled in some major ones too, keep things interesting. An example of a smaller one is here, the Dude Full Box glitch, which can be done by filling up the Pokemon party and the active box completely before speaking to this NPC. How odd. Let's see what else is in store. The first one, the Spike's Sandstorm glitch, can be a bit tricky to set up, but this method here worked pretty well for me. You'll need to fight a wild Ditto with a team low on HP, low enough to faint to Spikes, but your first Pokemon needs to faint from Sandstorm. Watch here and I'll demonstrate. So first I want Ditto to transform into the Pokemon with Spikes, which is the Quillfish I have here. Ditto's going to transform, and at that point, before Ditto uses Spikes, I need to change into the Pokemon with Sandstorm and then use it. So my Sandshrew. Ditto will throw down Spikes on this turn, which is great, that's exactly what we want. And we're going to use Sandstorm before switching out. This is the critical step, in my opinion. It was a bit tricky to get this to work. The next Pokemon you switch into, which in my case is going to be Quillfish, needs to be able to survive the Spikes damage, but then faint from Sandstorm. It's also important that Ditto transforms into a Pokemon that only knows Spikes, just to make things more simple. Once that Pokemon faints from Sandstorm, proceed to switch into all your Pokemon that will then faint to Spikes immediately. As you can see there, and we're going to get wiped out by Spikes and get sweeped. Now the key part is that your last Pokemon, in my opinion, for best effects, is able to run away. I think technically you could use a Pokédoll here if you wanted. It is possible to fight at this point. You do get one extra turn in this battle, using this glitch. However, it's much better to get away and escape the battle. And that is because once we leave the battle, you'll see here that all of our Pokemon are fainted in the overworld, which has interesting effects. Sometimes you might be able to try this with poison, however there's a check for that. Once your Pokemon faints from poison, it looks like it checks for your party and you won't be able to move on. But as you see there, we go into a wild battle and it just instantly ends the battle. We get the instant victory glitch by doing this. What's so nice about that is this also works on trainers, as you'll see here. So once she sends out her first Pokemon, we won't be able to send anything out, and the game just kind of craps out on us. And then we end up beating her, as you'll see here. But we're going to pass on taking her phone number. We're too good for that. Now we can even take this to the Elite Four. Now one thing, you might guess, don't heal your Pokemon. If you heal your Pokemon, you'll reset the effects of this glitch, because your Pokemon will be healed, and then, he'll play out as normal. I also recommend not dealing with the PC, however you might be able to get away with that. I wouldn't trust it though. But if we go into the Elite Four and talk to Will, as you might guess is the same as the last trainer, we'll instantly beat him. And if you don't believe me, watch this. So he'll send out his Xatu, and then the battle will end. So it makes you wonder, how far can this go? Well, without a doubt, we'll go to the champion and see if it works. This probably would even work on Red too, by the way. Something I might try in a later video. Then he'll start talking about how we love our Pokemon and we couldn't have gotten this far without them, even though we kind of forced them into a painful fainting, if you will, since they don't really die. And they're all fainted, so I don't know what he's talking about. Now what is interesting is something he says after the battle, which is very funny, in my opinion. So there's Champion Lance and his awesome music. He's going to start with his Gyarados. But I don't got an electric type to battle Gyarados, and I don't really want to, so we're just going to instantly win the battle. And then this is the funny part, he's like, phew! Like, we just had an epic, long battle, even though I guess we just had an overwhelming presence. And he's like, holy shit! All of his Pokemon are fainted, and he wants to battle! That's about everything there is to do with the Sandstorm Spikes glitch. Not necessarily the case for the instant victory glitch, but I'll save that for another video. But for now, I'm actually going to move into another battle with Claire. Now Claire, just because of type advantage and a way, but mostly because I want to use Twister and show the damage differences between Nothing, Dragon's Fang, and the Dragon Scale. Now the results are a bit interesting. Keep in mind that damage rolls are a thing, so sometimes moves will do more damage at random and less damage as well. Something interesting that happens on the left here is the Dragon's Fang, and on the right is the Dragon's Scale. What's supposed to happen is the Dragon's Fang is supposed to increase the amount of damage of Dragon-type moves, but you'll see here that it doesn't. And neither does the Dragon's Scale, but it's actually said to do so by mistake. And it's interesting, they actually both did the same damage here and less than the initial hit with no item modifier, but that was just purely due to the damage rolls. Which is pretty silly, but now it's time to see something silly with the Shiny Transform Switch glitch, which you might be able to take a few guesses what it entails. So pretty much any random battle is going to work with a trainer, but it does need to be a trainer that has at least 2 Pokemon. Because what you're supposed to do is use Ditto to transform, imagine that, and then it needs to defeat a Pokemon. Which is sometimes easier said than done, because Ditto isn't terribly that good. Might be easier if you have a level advantage, which I probably should have done. I thought 24 was going to be high enough, but I couldn't find a trainer available with enough Pokemon. But I'm going to cut this out, and we're going to see the good stuff. So Ditto's going to use a Side Beam to defeat Remoraid here, and that'll give us the opportunity to make a switch, which I realize now if you have that option off, this won't work. But if you switch here, you'll see there that Ditto lost its color palette and took the color of Remoraid, which is really strange. Now the reason why this happens is because you're switching into a shiny Pokemon, that kind of makes things a little weird. Now this Lapras, I didn't have shiny before this, I used the mail code to change it, by the way. And that's essentially just to get that effect to work, because you need a shiny Pokemon to get that. So that's essentially all it is. It's a really minor thing, but kind of cool nonetheless. But now, funnily enough, we're back to battling Claire since she's a trainer that will use a full heal, which will be important for the next topic, opponent full heal and full restore oversight. This can occur to any Pokemon under the effects of Nightmare and Confusion, so that's going to, of course, need a Pokemon that's sleeping for Nightmare, and I have Gengar that can do pretty much everything we need. Hypnosis for sleep, Nightmare, as I mentioned, and of course Confuse Ray for Confusion. Now, things couldn't have worked out any better here. I hit Hypnosis first try, Kingdra was asleep for the whole battle, whittled it down with Nightmare and Dream Eater. Then Confusion goes in after Claire decides to fully heal Kingdra, and then uses a full heal on the next turn, which is exactly what I want. Because now Kingdra is under the effects of Nightmare and Confusion, show off both at the same time. It was truly great. But you'll notice here that I cannot confuse Kingdra again, because full heal does not remove Confusion, same thing with full restore. And you'll see there, Kingdra is not asleep, but still under the effects of Nightmare, which looks very strange. And it just gets worse from here, because that does not go away, Nightmare at least. And then Confusion will eventually go out on its own, but still. And I can't use Dream Eater as you saw there, because it's no longer asleep, but it's still under the effect of Nightmare. It's actually a very unfortunate and kind of scary situation. Now this next glitch is a big one. It's the coin case glitch, which I have shown before, but it's good to introduce some things right off the bat. It is exclusive to the English versions of Gold and Silver. I want to feature it again because some questions about it came up. Another thing to get out of the way is the coin case is found in Underground of Goldenrod, which you'll need, and you need to have the first digit of your coins held be equal to 1. So 100 works, 1000 will also work. You want to make sure that you purchase a flower mail and put a code into it, which I'll show later. We're also going to change some of the boxes in the PC, up to 6. And I will also link in the description a good place to go to see these steps written out. It'll be a lot easier. So from this point, we're going to go down from the PC and go to this location, and then save and reset the game. That is important. If you're familiar with my channel, you might know that I've covered this before. However, we are doing a different setup this time, so that should make things interesting, and it's also a bit easier than the ones I've shown before. After you reload the game, walk up 2 steps and then go down 1. Go into your Pokédex and then find either Bellsprout or Machop, either works. I like to click on Cry to make sure. You just want to play their Cry. When you're going to back out, go into the Pokemon that you gave the flower mail to with this code, which I will show on screen now. Be sure to always double check yourself. Even with things like this, it's really easy to make a mistake, and even the littlest mistake can cause the thing not to work. I cannot stress this enough. Then after that, you're going to go into the item bag. Make sure you have an item in the first slot in the main pocket of the item bag that you don't care about, because it's going to get replaced. Make sure you switch the pocket at least once, go to the coin case and then use it, and then a mail rider will show up. And that's how you know everything has been set up correctly so far. Once again, check out the link to the Glitch City wiki about this glitch setup. It will help a lot in addition to following along here. I am typing in 4 different mails in which I have sped up. If a 5th mail shows up after the 4th, that means the setup is complete. And these 2 additional mails will help with cleanup and save it for future use. These ones will give a checksum after the 5th mail. And at this point you have to make sure you hit select to move on to the 6th mail. If you hit enter, the game will freeze. After the 6th mail is completed, everything for the mail rider is set up, and it should be tested. But first you'll notice the box names are back to normal. And we'll have a TM33 in the first slot of the made items pocket. If you open this and input RH, capital R, lowercase h, that will effectively test the rider, as this code is designed to close it without any extra effects. But now it's time to put the mail rider to use. The code I have on screen here can do something pretty interesting to the balls pocket. What that code did was technically change the quantity and the item in the balls pocket. The first slot, which you saw there, was the park ball. So the park ball, you're not supposed to get that at all outside the bug catching contest, so we're going to see what it does here in a normal battle. And since it was not intended to be outside a bug catching contest, you might guess it breaks the game. And causes that very comical graphical glitch, which I enjoy. And it kind of goes away once we close that, but that's simply because the park ball wasn't supposed to be used in that manner. Now unfortunately I do try to test it on other Pokemon. It doesn't actually change at all. I find a Rattata first, and then I try it on a Ditto. But we'll see here, nothing different really happens. But this next glitch is pretty big, and I expect a lot of you guys to already know it. I'm going to start off by giving an item to my level 100 Celebi here. That's important for what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the PC. But first, before doing that, you need to save the game, which is a critical step. Save the game to where your party is how you want it to be, and have the Pokemon you want in there. Then go to deposit the Pokemon that you want to clone, because we're going to be doing the cloning glitch. You haven't picked up on that yet. Doesn't really matter what box you change to, I always just choose an empty box, and it always happens to be 1, since it's at the top. The game's going to tell you that it needs to save the game for changing boxes, and then that you want to overwrite the file or not. When you say yes, you have pretty much about 3 seconds, they say, is when you want to reset. I don't think it really matters, it's very lenient in Gold and Silver. However, that is not the case in Pokemon Crystal. The timing's a little bit different in there, it's definitely more precise. But if you're curious, the window in Pokemon Crystal is about 9 to 10 frames, beginning shortly after the saving "Don't turn off the power" text is fully printed. Once we load the game back up, we'll open up the Pokemon party and we'll notice that the item is still on Celebi, which is important because you want to save after putting the item on Celebi. We'll go into our box that we deposited Celebi in last time, and we'll notice that's in here, with its item, which is quite amazing, honestly. This clone glitch is very easy to do, and it's a good way to duplicate items. Not as efficient as just using the mail rider, but it's still pretty helpful. But now I'm going to take it a step further and show you the bad clone glitch, which can be used to do some pretty cool things to get a glitch Pokemon, which will allow you to do more cool things. Pretty much the easiest method that I use that works for me. I just use 3 Pokemon. You want a box that has 15. You can see there I added 3, so we got 18. Same process, but the timing's different. Essentially, you just go to the yes, and like as soon as you notice the box disappears, the yes/no box, you just reset. And the reason why we want 15 Pokemon is because that's the threshold that makes it more common to happen. And when you deposit 3, you get 18, it's fine. You don't want to fill out the box. If you fill out the box, you cannot do this glitch. So that's something important to note. Sometimes it may not work and you might actually have a bad file. I haven't experienced that personally. But I did skip the timing to show you what to look for. It actually worked out great. I got some where it's like the clone wasn't completely bad, but it was still abnormal. What you're looking for is level 0, it turns female for some reason, and it has no name. If you didn't get a bad clone, I can help you troubleshoot. If the Pokemon didn't clone at all, it was too early, the reset. If the Pokemon cloned normally, it was too late, your timing was. In this case, you'll release the Pokemon, save, and then reset. And now I'm going to take it another step further and show you the benefits of getting this Pokemon. We can go to the daycare, which can be used to stabilize hybridized Pokemon, which is exactly what Hoo-Hoo is right now. It's a hybridized Pokemon with index 00, which is given by the bad clone glitch. It can be stabilized by giving it to either the daycare people and then taking it back. And you'll notice here that once we get it, it has like a type steel, and it makes like a Bulbasaur noise for a cry. It still has no move, and it's index 000. And this is effectively one of the easiest ways to get index 00 without using the mail rider. And while we're in the daycare, there's actually something else I can show off with this Teddy Ursa here. You'll see here it needs 62 EXP to level up to level 21. So if I put Teddy Ursa in there, and then walk less than 62, just walk around a little bit, and go back to get Teddy Ursa, we'll see something interesting, but also kind of annoying. We'll see that it actually resets his EXP level, making it to the minimum for the level that he's at level 20. So we essentially lost EXP, which is the glitch here, the EXP lost glitch. Or I guess technically experience lost glitch. So if I reload and then run around enough for it to go to the next level, let's see what happens. So of course it's going to go up a level, but here's something else that's important to know. Even though it went up a level, it still goes down to the minimum for when we take it out of the daycare. So it's always good to try and eyeball it if you really try to use the daycare, how close it will be to leveling up. That only takes memorizing the steps you take and also when Pokemon need EXP to level up, so it's really not worth bothering with. But it's definitely worth pointing out. This next glitch is going to require us to go into Kanto. The easiest way to do that is to go to New Bark Town and have walk through walls, going along routes 26 and 27 to get to Victory Road. Gonna take a similar path to how I did in my last video of Let's Glitch Pokemon Gold. Once we get to the gate, we're actually going to go into Kanto that way. And then gonna make a cut into Cerulean City, that's where I'm gonna do something first. This can only happen in the Cerulean Gym. However, what I originally wanted to show can happen anywhere, so might as well show this first, here in Cerulean. And that's something that I don't believe actually works, but the Glitch City Wiki said does exist, and it's like water tile encounter air, if you will. In Generation 1, you can not only fish in gym statues, but you could surf in the water in Misty's gym and encounter water-type Pokemon in the water, as you would imagine. But it seems to not be the case. It says that it was patched in Pokemon Yellow and Crystal, but not in Gold and Silver as well as Red and Blue, but it doesn't seem to be working in Gold and Silver. But clearly it doesn't seem to be working at all, so we're going to move along with that and go on to something that's a lot more interesting. And this is going to require the map card and the Pokégear. And when we enter Kanto, before we're supposed to, and have this, the map kind of glitches out, as you can see here. Getting like random spots where they shouldn't be on Johto. And if we go all the way back through it, like with New Bark Town being the last one you saw there, it said special, and now everything just gets kind of weird. Random text starts showing up, which I think is actually a very, very neat effect. I love when in Gen 1 you get stuff like this, like glitched fly locations that you could actually fly to. But as far as I can tell, these are just glitched map locations. Now if you go one direction, you can get this. If you go the other direction, you can actually end up in a loop, which kind of happens at some point during this. Yeah, so I went up and it went to Victory Road, and now I'm just looping. And I can't get out of it unless I close out. Thankfully, there is a point to where if you stop going in the glitch location, it'll be okay. If you go too far, the game will actually crash. But I'll show off the looping effect again, where you can just kind of get stuck in the same spot. And nothing really interesting happens other than it just loops in that little area right there. It's almost like the common area between Johto and Kanto. But now I'm just going to hold down in the one direction and we're going to see that it goes into the glitch realm. And the faster I do it, it just fills up so quick, it's crazy, and then the game crashes, froze, crash and burned. Now before I wrap this video up, there's one more thing I would like to bring to your attention, and that's the Hall of Fame Master Glitch. It is supposed to show up after the player clears the Hall of Fame 200 times, however an error in the code causes it to never be seen, which is terrible for those who tried it and wondered why they didn't receive it. That has to take a long time to do. If anyone wants to provide a calculation in the comments, that would be appreciated. What else is appreciated is that you made it this far into the video. Thank you very much, I hope you enjoyed. That is going to conclude this video. If you are interested in seeing other Glitches of Interest videos, click on this playlist here. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.